So it appears that there's a little more excitement this morning. I guess it's nice to have some real positive news, especially during the holiday season, right? I mean, this is the best time of year to talk about all of the great things happening in our city. We had a mayor's meeting yesterday of about nearly 40 mayors from around the area, and Mick Cornett came into town, and President Bardot both presented to all of the area mayors, and it was really uplifting and talking about what we need to do as a city and a community and the kinds of things that they've been through. And today we get to see some of that we've been working on start coming to fruition. So have a couple of friends with us this morning. We have Tom Wendish and Brian Sykes, and they're going to come up and present some information on what they're building. I want to just mention a couple of things because this is kind of important to us. We're obviously very excited that not only did they stay in our community, but they're investing in our community. And when they made the statement for a company like them that competes, no question, in the global marketplace, they said the best place for them to do that is Wichita, Kansas. And we just couldn't ask for a better statement from them. But they're going to invest nearly $60 million in a new state-of-the-art complex that they're going to come up here and unveil here. And I think that you will all be very pleased. And so we'll let you both come up and share some words, and however you want to unveil it. If you want to speak first, unveil first.
Unveil it. Is that all right?
Perfect. There you go. So we will let you have the podium.
I'll find the spot. Well, good morning. It's really good to be here and unveil the architectural rendition of our new office. So this will serve as our North American protein headquarters. We'll have 800 or more folks in that building, and so we're really excited about it. And before I talk a little bit about the building, I want to thank some folks. So Tom Wendish is with me. Tom is the president of our retail part of our business, and Tom and a team with him have spent the last year on this journey with us. And as you know, we needed to decide where we're going to be, and we made that decision that it's going to be here in Wichita. And then it was about where in the city do we want to be, what architects do we need, and what do we want the building to look like, and what functional needs do we want to meet. And so I really want to recognize Tom and our team for the great work they've done. We are really excited about the outcome. I want to thank the mayor for his support and all the city officials. You guys have been very influential in us being here and staying here and just really supportive. I'd also like to thank Governor Brownback and the state officials. It was just a collective effort for us, and the show of support was meaningful and influential in our decision to stay. So we said when we made the commitment, it was a long-term commitment, and that we would invest and grow in this community. And so this is now evidence of that. And so we're really, again, proud of the outcome. We're going to be in Old Town, which we think is a really vibrant part of this city and a part that we think our employees will enjoy being in the middle of. We think we'll add to the commerce that goes on down there, the access to the restaurants. It's a great area that's going to continue to grow and get better. This building is going to be a sense of pride, I think, for our employees, the ones we have today and those that we're going to recruit in the future. It's going to be a building that does a good job of marrying our legacy and our history, but at the same time being modern and relevant to those employees. It'll have all the amenities that you would expect for a building, a current building being built to have. And so we again, couldn't be more pleased. We hope that it'll be a sense of pride for the city as well. It's going to be a beautiful complex when we're done. It'll have green space. We've got parking on site. That's a big deal to us. Again, we have over 800 people today in multiple buildings, so we'll be in one. We have 5 or 6 parking garages we use today. So if you can imagine 800 plus people crossing multiple crosswalks multiple times a day, that goes away for us. The only time they'll cross now is if they decide to walk across the street and have lunch, and hopefully we can make that a safe experience. But we've had some injuries in the last year, and so we take safety very seriously, and that's an important aspect of this building as well. So I think I'll pause with that. And Tom, do you have any additional comments you want to make about the building? But thank you all.
Just that what you're seeing here is a collective effort of our employees and their input. They wanted access to amenities, the restaurants, and the Old Town energy. They wanted access to the outside. You'll notice there's an outdoor patio. There's kind of an amphitheater in the back that they can use at will. And also wanted to recognize our architectural partners, HOK. They've done a great job taking all the employee input and turning it into the product you're looking at now.
Thank you. We're going to change up. We normally wait until the end for questions, but because this is kind of the big story of the day, I think we'll go ahead and allow you all to take questions for this portion of it. We have two more items that we want to talk about here briefly, and it's going to be snow removal and want to talk about the, maybe the most important news of the day, the mayor's Christmas tree lighting. But before we get to the mayor's Christmas tree lighting, why don't we open it up for questions? I do want to add that we're not trying to steal President Trump's thunder on jobs in America for Carrier. But I will tell you this, we think this is more meaningful because now we have a company that's investing millions and millions of dollars and not just saving a few jobs, but they're going to grow jobs. And we think if we do this right, that we will have something that we can be proud of for decades to come and something that we think will be incredibly beneficial. As you can tell, it's going to make a difference for the landscape on our Douglas Avenue. And what takes off from that, who really knows? But we know that it's going to increase the interest in that entire area. So with that being said, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it, and we'll open it up. I'm sure you probably have some questions for these two individuals. So Tom, if you and Brian want to.
Yeah, Scott Evans, KWCH. Not sure if you've announced this yet, but when do you plan to begin the renovations? How long are they going to take? Type of cost there, and so we'll start there.
So that's actively being worked on. There's a current tenant in place, and of course they need to find a home. I think that's in place. Really, we're looking at summer of 18 for the building to be ready and be move-in shape.
Can you talk any more specifics about the amenities that this building will have that your current facility does not?
Well, we have a combination of amenities. One is an expanded test kitchen, so we can have customers come to our building. Our current building isn't conducive to bring in customers and have those type of collaborative meetings we want. One is just the openness of the layout. We're currently in 10 stories. We're going to be in 4. We're going from a couple hundred offices to 56. So we will have those areas where we're collaborating and intentionally running across people. And that current building we're in doesn't afford us that.
Sounds like that idea is very similar to what a lot of major tech companies and other large companies are doing. That type of format is
absolutely. People want flexibility in where they work and how they work. They want access to the outside. Again, we've put in a lot of work in terms of patio access, outside access. We're adding in locker rooms, so if employees want to bike or run to work or on their lunchtime, they can do that and come back and clean up and go back into the office. So those are just a few of the amenities that were high on the list. And more importantly, these amenities aren't what we decided, it's what our employees decided. They came to us and ranked what they wanted, and that's what's going into the building.
What's the square footage?
180,000 square foot.
How does that compare with what you have?
It's
151.
well, it's a little bit bigger, but it's a little bit misleading because we're also in different buildings. Our employees are scattered in about 3 different buildings downtown today.
What happens to the building that opened a couple of years ago, or maybe it's 3 years now, the test kitchen, whatever that? I'm sorry, I don't have
The Innovation Center. So that is still operational. Within there, we have test kitchens. We've got a fully operational plant. So we will still conduct our innovation, activities in there. They'll have the chefs. They'll have the food scientists. Really, nothing changes with that building.
So it will remain as is, essentially? Okay.
Correct.
Do you own 151?
Yes.
Okay, so that's on the market?
We have a letter of intent from another entity to buy it.
Can you talk about the parking garage? Are you expecting to put all 800 employees' cars in there?
Well, you have to study this. What we studied is when employees scan in, and what we figured out about every day, about 90% of our employees come to work. And so that drove the size of parking that we're requiring. So it'd be misleading to say we're building it for every single one of our employees, but about 90%.
So how many spaces does it have?
Around 700, 750.
How does that compare with other parking garages? That seems like one of the biggest in town, am I wrong?
Probably will be the largest in town now. The old Macy's garage might have come,
550 or something.
I think, and it was the largest in town up to that point, wasn't it? So this would be the largest parking structure in town. You know, the nice benefit of that, though, is what it does for the community, because we're going to be able to utilize that parking garage at night, and certainly for Interest Bank Arena events. And so it's a large win for the city of Wichita. And some of those details will come out eventually about all of the particulars of the parking garage and any other incentives, including Mayor Monday meals at the new test kitchen. But
Can you talk about incentives, other than the garage, which I'm thinking the city's going to build on its own?
part of it's just traditional incentives that we've utilized. If they make an investment, they'll do some IRBs, which come with traditional abatements and those kinds of things. And so we'll have all of those details released at the right time. But the biggest component of it certainly is the parking garage and what it does for them and what it does for the city. And so we're pretty excited about that.
And what's the estimated cost of the garage?
I'll just use a ballpark figure of, I think, $10 million. Is that close enough, Scott?
And
Whatever the mayor says. Is that the mode we're in today?
We are paying for part of that as well.
yeah, this is not a total, this is Cargill's investment in the city, so we're sharing in the cost of that garage.
Right.
Is the $60 million number, that covers basically all the money that you guys are spending on this new?
So it's approximately right.
Yeah.
My guess is it'll be north of that when we're done.
Yeah,
It
furniture,
almost
fixtures,
always is.
equipment.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions on the Cargill? Thank you all.
Before they get away, can we get their names and their titles?
Sure, they're not going to run out. They want to stay here for the mayor's Christmas.
That's
tree.
right.
So before we get to that, I just again want to thank our friends at Cargill and thank them for coming today. I neglected to share that we have some other council members. Councilmember Pete Meissner is here with us today too, and certainly we've all been excited about this. Councilmember James Clendon, stay away from him. I'm sure he has something that's contagious. But as a council, we're incredibly excited about this, and so it really is something that generates a lot of pride in the city and the city council and the staff, and everything came together, we think, perfectly. So I want to talk briefly about snow removal. It's that time of year. I think some of you have seen in the forecast that we may have our first snow here in a few days, and so we have Alan King here to talk about his 200 employees that are ready to help us keep our streets clear and safe. And so, Alan, I'm going to turn it over for your update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff's been busy preparing for the upcoming winter season for our new employees that have been with the city for 2 years or less. We've been putting them through some formal snow response training, how to drive snowplow and that sort of a thing. We have more than total of 200 employees that work through the snow season, and that means being on 12-hour shifts typically, working around the clock 24 hours, and that includes weekends and holidays, whatever the need is. We have the staff out on the streets to respond to it. And we have about 1,500 miles or 1,800 total lane miles of snow routes. About 1,500 of those miles are what we call primary routes. That's really the arterials in the city. And then we have about another 300 lane miles of what we call secondary routes. And those are main neighborhood collectors, and particularly ones that serve schools, school buildings. We do not take care of the interstate system, either Kellogg or the interstate I-235 and 135. That's done by the state and the county typically. And what we do have on our website is a listing of what the city's snow routes are. We have added 9 plow trucks to our inventory last year. We'll continue to use those. That brings us up to 61 plow trucks that we deploy to respond to plowing and sanding streets. Our material stores, there's in previous years it made news that there were salt shortages across the country. We're completely full up as far as our salt stores are. We have 7,500 tons of our 50-50 mix, half salt, half sand, and we have another 8,000 tons of pure salt. When you add half of that sand to it, that gets us the ability to immediately come up with 16,000 tons of our salt sand mix. So, and as we go through the winter and start using these, we make orders and try to keep topped off in terms of our supplies. We will have in the third consecutive winter, we have a website on the city's a web page on the city's website that actually shows real time where our snow plows are. They have GPS units in each of the trucks, and you can see not only where they are but where they have plowed over a period of time. That may help some folks plan their trips as they want to venture out and take care of business, get back and forth to work. So that's a tool that's available. And if anybody is interested in getting some B-roll or some other footage of our efforts, we do have folks that continue to get ready for the season. And if you want to get in touch with me afterwards, we can arrange for you to meet with our staff and take some pictures. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate Alan King being here. One of my favorites. Nothing can irritate citizens more than not reacting to snow removal, and it's a big task that we take very seriously, and I think we do a good job. And so it's important work, and appreciate the update. The news of the day: we are changing the mayor's tree lighting ceremony a little bit this year. We're going to hold it this coming Sunday. It's going to start at 5 o'clock in front of Century 2. We're combining it with Lights on the River this year, something that we haven't done before. It's always been with Night with Santa, where they have games inside with the kids. But this year we're combining it with Lights on the River, and it'll be a combination of fireworks included in that. We'll have some free transportation taking people back and forth from some areas around Lawrence Dumont and bringing them over to the tree lighting ceremony, and then back and forth to Lights on the River. And so we think it'll be fun activity for families, certainly, and there'll be some other things available. There's going to be a big floating orb celebration, and for $5 you can buy a floating orb and launch it on the river. At 7 o'clock is when the fireworks are going to be displayed, and so it's really that season where it's great for families and entertaining and get people in the Christmas spirit, and look forward to all of you being there. So with that being said, we will see if there's any questions for the last two items, the snow removal or the Christmas tree lighting, and we'll call it a day.
Mayor, as big as Sunday night's going to be, all of my questions are for Alan, so no offense. I thought you explained it well.
Did you Now, this is twice in a row you've kind of beat me down. You were kind of tough on me yesterday, weren't you?
Possibly, yes.
Possibly. Alan, jump up here.
Thank you, Mayor. Alan, just a couple of questions. Mayor mentioned how irritating it can be with a slow response. You mentioned how many roads are covered that you guys plow. There's a lot of roads that are not plowed, residential neighborhoods that, thankfully, last couple of years we haven't had a lot of snow, but when it does come down, there are neighborhoods that are untouched. Can you tell us why that continues to be the case?
Yeah, when you look at the resource requirements to do snow response, we're about right-sized now, meaning we have 61 trucks. We could perhaps use a few more, but I mean, it's within the range of what makes sense for 1,500 lane miles of streets that we do now on our snow routes. We have a total of about 5,000 lane miles, and so if we were to consider doing the streets, and we've looked at this, you're talking about a tripling or maybe even a quadrupling of the necessary resources. So instead of 60 trucks, you'd have over 200 to maybe 250 trucks. You'd have to also increase the number of staff that you'd need to drive those trucks, and then we also are about right size in terms of staff too, because you want to be able to keep those folks busy when it's not the winter season, repairing roads and doing that. So we're about right size as far as equipment and staffing levels now, and then it's really just a matter of budget. We spend on average somewhere between $1 and $2 million a year in our current approach what we do, and so you'd be looking at multiplying that by 4 or 5 times to do what it is that you're talking about.
You mentioned your salt sand mix and then your pure sand, 7,500 of the mix and then potential for 16,000 tons more. What's typical in a year? Do you typically eclipse what you have in storage?
That's probably a little bit more than what we would use in an average winter, but what we don't know what an average winter looks like, and so what we try to do is store up enough that we're pretty sure we're going to make it through until some reorders, and even if there are some hiccups in the supply and we're getting reorders, we have enough to be able to put some orders in well in advance and get the necessary stores so that we're pretty much prepared for any kind of a storm or winter that comes along.
So if this becomes an atypical storm and you need to get more supplies, roughly how much does this mixture cost?
Don't have a cost per ton right now. I could get that number for you and let you know what that is. And
so just to follow up to the previous thing about the neighborhoods, for all the people who live in these neighborhoods who struggle to get out at times, what do you say to them?
Well, once you get out to a primary route or secondary route, then the traveling should be safe, and we keep those roadways passable and safe. Sometimes it is a struggle to get out of the individual neighborhoods. We do see that some neighborhoods, particular neighborhood associations and homeowners associations, do pay for their own internal snow plowing, and even though those are public streets, we don't in any way cause that to be a difficulty for those organizations to go ahead and offer that service to their neighborhoods.
Thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it.